Yo, what's up? It's been a long time, a lot's changed, and I've read a lot of books. So here's my favorite books of 2025, starting with honorable mentions. They're all kind of mixed in no order. Starting with a book I never really thought I would read because I see one at every single Goodwill that I've ever been to, and it's just one of those books that just seem like very pop fiction. But I dove in because I've been in a kind of detective fiction mystery mood and mixed that with investigative journalism, which I got into this year. And you have The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, which I was not expecting I would ever read, but it was surprising. I gave it a 4.25 out of 5. And yeah, for the most part, I enjoyed it. I watched the movie, and the book is definitely way better. Even though it's a David Fincher movie, I had high hopes, but yeah, it's just kind of a perfect winter read. I listened to the audiobook about a month or two ago, so the perfect weather for it, and I was just in the mood for exactly what it was giving me. And mainly, I really love murder mysteries that have unconventional, like, detectives, I guess. I mean, this one, they're not a detective. I like it, you know, eccentric people or just like an odd people in an odd career, like an investigative journalist is trying to solve this murder, instead of, I don't really like the detective police work stuff, but anyways, everyone's heard of this. Actually worth reading, but I looked into the second and third book and I don't plan on continuing. Another book I listen to, I have a new job, so I get to listen to a lot of audiobooks. So I finished the year listening to like 10 or 12 audiobooks and read about 30 books this year. So another one everyone knows, Kitchen Confidential, amazing book, read by Anthony Bourdain as well. I read about 100 pages of this a few years ago and kind of felt like it was more geared towards people that wanted to be an actual chef, and I don't want to be a chef. I've never really wanted to be a chef, but once I listened to it and got past that part, I realized it's about much more, and he even went on to reading his second book that he came out with after this, which I didn't like nearly as much. It was just kind of all over the place, but yeah, highly recommend. And I put some nonfiction books in my honorable mentions because my top 10 is going to be fiction. This isn't the specific book I read, but it's the same author and it's the same style of cover. This is Tombstone, but I read Dodge City by Tom Clavin. I got really into watching, what's his name? I'm blanking on it. The guy in Tombstone that passed away. What's his name? Val Kilmer. Duh. And it made me want to read about, I thought that whole movie was fiction. It's not. It's crazy. But Dodge City wasn't necessarily what I was looking for. It definitely had a lot of aspects of that, but then I found Tombstone afterwards, so I plan on getting to that. And then what got me into investigative journalism this year and nonfiction, which I haven't really been in a nonfiction mood in a while, is I watched the movie All the President's Men, and I immediately went and bought the book and read it. And this is absolutely incredible. The movie, best movie I watched last year, and I watched 150 movies probably, of movies I'd never seen before. And yeah, the book is incredible. It's written by the two guys that discovered Watergate, which honestly, I didn't really know that much about Watergate. I studied the late 50s and pretty much all the 60s in college, but I stopped at 70, and this kind of picks right back up where I stopped, 70 to 73. Incredible. Two investigative journalists. This is what started a lot of journalist careers is this book, and I completely understand why. I thought I wanted to be a journalist after I read this, and yeah, after I read this, I wanted to watch the movie again, then I wanted to read it again. I was obsessed, and it got me really into investigative journalism, especially in the form of nonfiction. I got a suggestion from a friend of a book called Chaos by Tom O'Neill, which is about MK Ultra, Charles Manson, and the CIA around the same time in the early 70s. And unfortunately, I don't have a copy. I lent it out, and I underlined so much, and I want to reread it again. I was absolutely enthralled. I couldn't put it down, and I couldn't stop talking about it. Everyone I worked with was probably annoyed with me because I kept on bringing it up, but I couldn't stop, and it was just such a left-wing or left field, a suggestion from a friend that I kind of blew me away. But anyways, moving on. This is completely different. I think I'm finally done with anime and manga. I really tried. I thought I'd like it. It's not for me. But I did enjoy this. And that's Uzumaki, which is horror. And this is 600 pages, but you can read 100 pages in like 30 minutes to an hour. And I really enjoyed this. I tried reading some of his other stuff before this, and it just wasn't really for me. But everyone was telling me about the spirals. I had to read this, and I'm glad that I did. I still gave it a 4 out of 5, but there's parts of it that I still think about. And my last 2 honorable mentions, and they're only honorable mentions because I just finished them, but I read the majority of them last year. I didn't want to rush to finish them just for book numbers, but I don't want to wait all the way until next year to put them on my list. And these would have easily cracked the top 3 of my favorite books of the year. And that is another book that everyone knows and apparently is reading, and that's Count of Monte Cristo, which I don't know why, but this and Lonesome Dove is on everybody's list this year. It's just in the air, I guess, but yeah, I mean, it's great. I physically read the first 100 pages or so, and then I listened to the rest, which I have a hard time reading 500-page books, even if I'm listening to them. And this is 1,100 pages, and good thing with my new job, I was able to read 8 hours a day, 6 hours a day, and so I got the second half of it done in about a week. But yeah, I mean, I was a little disappointed with how things ended up at the end, but I mean, it's a classic for a reason. One of my favorite books. Up until, I'm assuming most people know this story if you don't, but up until a certain point, about a third of the way through, this was tied with my favorite book of all time, East of Eden. I was like, man, this might beat East of Eden, which I didn't think anything ever would, and it was up there. But then after that, it just kind of, it's still, top 10 favorite book of all time, but I really thought I was about to have a new favorite book of all time, but East of Eden is still the reigning champ. And then another one that kind of came out of nowhere. I don't know why I picked it up. I just really wanted to read, Flannery O'Connor for the first time, because I've tried reading some of her short stories, and I really loved the movie Wildcat, directed by Ethan Hawke, starring Maya Hawke. I rewatched it, and it kind of made me want to read something by her, and so I finally read Wise Blood, which is incredible. It's fantastic. I might even rank it over Count of Monte Cristo. I'm not sure. I can't even pick between the two. They're just so different. Her style is took so long for me to like find my footing with her style. It was like absurdist, surrealist. It felt like Oh Brother, Where Art Thou mixed with like Kafka almost. Like it was wild. I don't know. Like there was so many times where I was reading a paragraph, and like I wouldn't comprehend, and then I would like read it again, and it would just like I don't know. It would just like everything kind of took almost like a second reading for me to like fully figure out what she was saying. But then the second time I read it, I couldn't imagine it being said any other way. I don't know. It's hard to describe, but it's a book I'm for sure going to reread. Which I don't reread books very often, or at all. And yeah, incredible. I can't wait to read her other book, The Violent Buried Away. And then I'm gonna jump back into her short stories now that I know her style and I kind of know what to expect. But yeah, incredible novel. Now that was a long honorable mentions list, and I'm finally getting to the top 10. And I have a couple places where there's tied books, so technically it's 12 books. And I read 30 this year. I read another 20 or 30 partial. I think I read like 25 short stories, something like that. But for top 10, or number 10, tied, we have Catcher in the Rye and A Clockwork Orange. Because I feel like these kind of go together. They're both about, an adolescent boy who's kind of finding his way, kind of a, they're obviously very different too. But I just felt like I had to put them together. I think I might have preferred Clockwork Orange now that I've had some time, space, and I never thought I would like a book that's like in futuristic jargon. And yeah, I don't know. I mean, everyone's read Catcher in the Rye. Everyone knows Catcher in the Rye, so I won't go into explaining that. But I know I didn't read it in high school, and I listened to it on audiobook. There's a free YouTube that's like 6-7 hours, so I like started it and finished it within a day with my new job. And yeah, I think it's a better audiobook because I've tried starting it a couple times, but it really clicked for me as an audiobook. And yeah, but Clockwork Orange, yeah, really enjoyed this one. Apparently there's like a different American version and a different UK version where they took out the last chapter in the American version. But I finished this book. I like physically read half of it and then I listened to it. And luckily, the audiobook had the last chapter, and then I went back to go read it, and my American version didn't have the chapter, so that sent me down a rabbit hole. But anyways, one of the last Haruki Murakami books that I'll read or will be reading is number 9 for me, and that's Wind Up Bird Chronicle, and that's that's my second favorite Murakami now. I've read like 7 of his books. I'll probably give Wild Sheep Chase a chance, but I'm tired. Something keeps on bringing me back to his style. I don't know what it is, but then I keep on finding myself disappointed every time I read him. Because there's so much potential, but then he always lets me down. And the only way he really let me down was, of course, his portrayal of women, but it's probably like 200 pages too long. But I really liked the story. I really liked the main character. There was these flashback sequences that were like full-on stories of their own, and yeah. But I'm also kind of learning that I don't think magical realism is my thing, even though I really, really want to enjoy it. I tried reading 100 Years of Solitude. I got like 2/3 of the way through, and I just like couldn't do it anymore. I don't know why. It's frustrating when you read a book that everyone loves, and you want to love it too, and then you just don't. So I think it's just the magical realism. I don't know. It seems like it's everything that I would enjoy, but then the actual experience of it just isn't for me. And so, sorry if you heard my heater going, it rattles. But anyways, number 8, which was kind of a random read for me. I got in kind of a 90s mood ever since I watched Caught Stealing, the Austin Butler movie. I really felt like reading a book that took place in the 90s after that, and so I picked this up, and that's Bright Lights, Big City by Jay McInerney, which took me a long time to figure out how to say his last name. But very 90s, very Bret Easton Ellis, but I mean it's very up my alley too, where it's like New York City vibes. He's works as an editor in New York City. He's into the nightlife, drinking, drugs, but he also falls into, a depression. His girlfriend breaks up with him, and he just kind of loses it. And it's a short read. It doesn't overstay its welcome, which I find most books are longer than they need to be, but I felt like it was the perfect length. I just tried reading his second book that he came out with after this, called Ransom. Did not enjoy it, but I do plan on reading some more of his stuff. All right, and then number 7 is Little by Edward Carey, which I don't see anyone talking about Edward Carey. He's like a literary Tim Burton. He's awesome. He has his own artwork that he does. He's a professor from the UK, but he works at Texas University in Austin. And yeah, he's just like, incredible. It's like a mixture of Tim Burton and what else? I don't know. Like, this was about the French Revolution, about a wax, not curator, but a sculptist, and he makes like wax sculptures of these like famous people of the time. And I don't know, it's like a really good book to go in blind. But Oliver Twist, it's very Dickensian. It's like Tim Burton mixed with Dickens. That's what it is. And it's about, this little girl, that's her name, and she falls into an apprenticeship with this wax sculpturist during the French Revolution. And you get all these, it's like historical fiction, you get all these historical figures that come in and out of their lives because these wax sculptures become famous. And yeah, it was one of those books that I did feel like it dragged on a little too long, but the ending is very climactic, so I felt like it was worth it. But towards like the third-fourths of the way through mark, like I felt like it was a little dragging. But yeah, very good. I'm going to read his other books. He doesn't have that many. I tried reading his retelling of Pinocchio, the old man from Pinocchio. I can't remember his name. He wrote a novella about him. I tried reading that one. It wasn't really for me, but he has another one that I definitely plan on reading. And each time he writes a book, he does all the art, and the art style changes depending on what book. But I think I like this art style the most, and I highly recommend it. The only copy I don't have is my number 6 pick, and that's Northwoods by Daniel Mason. Almost said Daniel Woods. Daniel Mason's Northwoods, and that was one of the first books I read this year, and it stuck with me for the rest of the year. It was very, very interesting. I love the aspect of time changing and the setting staying the same. And so it was about the same plot of land in Massachusetts, I want to say, um, in the woods of like western Massachusetts. I could be wrong, but and it starts from like pre-colonial times, um, like the 1600s, um, and then it moves all the way to like present day, and it like tells the story of each generation. And there's like almost some horror aspects. There's almost some like supernatural aspects, but they're like hinted. But yeah, it was very good. I know everyone that reads it, it ends up being on their list, so highly recommend as well. And for number 5, we have one of the authors that got me into literature. I'm finally revisiting some of my favorite authors, and this is probably my 5th book I've read by him. The last 2 I read, I was disappointed. Now I got the train going. But this might be my favorite, or at least tied with my favorite, and that's Big Sur by Jack Kerouac. It's gonna keep going. And my favorite book by him is Dharma Bums. On the Road was a little drawn out, but I did like the beginning of it. But these two, I feel like, are great in the beginning, middle, and end. And I think it's done. And the first third of this, I thought it was gonna just be like Dharma Bums or On the Road. It felt like very, what's the word? Just felt like he was talking about the same stuff. And I was like, he's done this before, it's not gonna be anything different. But then everything flips. It's almost like a triptych. It's like 3 different stories. And what I found most fascinating about this is he's already famous. He's gotten famous from On the Road, him experiencing fame, him experiencing other, like, to him, kids, early 20-year-olds, who thinks he's 25, still living this life. But he's like 40 at this time, and he's kind of past it. Neil Cassidy has kind of moved on. All of his friends and On the Road and Dharma Bums has just kind of like gone in different directions, and he's not the same guy anymore. And the first third of the book is like him still trying to be that guy, and then him realizing that like he's past that point in his life, and he's having to come to terms with it and kind of face his own mortality. And him being like, I don't know, reading about a famous person who doesn't really want to be famous, but is also coming to terms with that, and then, but in doing it in real time. I don't know, I found it very interesting. And so, yeah, definitely worth picking up. Apparently, people consider those 3 like a trilogy. But yeah, for me, it goes On the Road, and then Dharma Bums and Big Sur are tied. All right, this is getting a little long, so I need to wrap it up. But coming in at 4, I got 2 books. They're tied because they kind of have the same vibe. They're both like medieval abbeys, even though they're very different books. I just couldn't. I rated them the same, and I just couldn't rank one over the other. But I got Umberto Eco's The Name of the Rose and Redwall by Brian Jacques, which I always thought was Jacques. Both great, both written extremely well. Yeah, Umberto Eco is like a literary Dan Brown that's incredibly intelligent, more intelligent than I will ever be in my entire life. And it's quite dense. I had to have the audiobook to finish this. But yeah, this one is a book that I always wanted to read when I was a kid, but I was never smart enough. I could never comprehend what was going on. But yeah, I'm finally glad I got to it because it's great as well. It's anthropomorphic, so all the characters are animals. This is a medieval murder mystery, and yeah, both take place in medieval abbeys. All right, and then number 3 is Night Film by Marisha Pessl, and I actually just found this really cool first edition. Really cool. But yeah, this is like everything I'm into one book. You had the investigative journalist, you had you know, the early 70s, and then you had it doesn't take place in the early 70s, but it's about like a famous director from the 70s, and this like dark, obscure secret society that's obsessed with these films and like cults and stuff like that. But yeah, the characters were great, the atmosphere was great. It was a little long, and then the ending was kind of disappointing. There were some supernatural aspects and horror aspects, but yeah, it was great. I loved it, and I highly recommend it. Obviously, I've said highly recommend like 6 times, but obviously all of these are recommendations. And then my top 2 is, number 2 is True Grit by Charles Portis, another one everyone's heard of. It is that good, better than the movie, and the movie's great as well. I haven't seen the John Wayne version, but had to rewatch the Coen Brothers one, but yeah, really loved it. This is my 2nd or 3rd Portis, but yeah, if you're looking for a literary western, that's, can't go wrong with it. And then my number 1 book of the year, which I feel like I haven't seen anyone read this, even though a mini-series came out and it was one of the most popular things to happen that year, and that is The Queen's Gambit by Walter Tevis. 5 out of 5. My only 5 out of 5. I have 4.75s, I have 4.5s, I have 4.25s, but not a single 5 out of 5, except for All the President's Men. And yeah, 0 problems with this. Great characters written, great, depiction of an autistic girl, or at least a neurodivergent on the spectrum girl that has drug problems, that has obsession problems, has, family problems, obviously. But one of my favorite things in life is chess, so I have to love this. So, incredible. I have a collection of his short stories on my desk. I plan on reading his other book, The Hustler, which they made a movie with Paul Newman back in the 60s, I want to say, as well. I'm going to read that, but it seems like his realm is really like gamblers and hustlers and people playing games for money in the underbelly of the city, which I love. So I don't really need to explain what The Queen's Gambit is. Most people have watched it. I mean, the show is amazing. The book's amazing. Can't go wrong with either of them, but I highly recommend the book as well. But anyways, it's been 30 minutes, so I should get off. Peace.